If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. Oh, hello there. Today we'll be talking about the software design pattern called a singleton. Hello there. We're doing our very first Game of Apps YouTube channel giveaway. So you could win either one of these, two toques, different styles. This one here is has no fold in it, and it's shorter. This one's longer and has this fold in it. They're both embroidered with the Game of Apps logo in our colors right here. So why are we doing this giveaway? Well, shameless plug, we want you to subscribe to our channel, and we want you to like this video and put in a comment. So that's how you enter. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and put in a comment as to why you want to win one of these. You get to choose which one. So if you're selected, then you can tell us which one you want. We will be doing the draw on December 31st, 2020, so at the end of the year. So this will be a nice New Year's present for you. And if you win, we will announce this in this channel, and then we will mail this to you via mail. So if you're watching this after December 31st, 2020, then sorry, we've already given it away. But stick around because we'll have other giveaways throughout the year. So again, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and put in a comment, and you can win one of these. Hello everyone. Today we'll be talking about Singletons, which is a software design pattern. So what are Singletons, and how are they useful? So a singleton is a software pattern, a software design pattern that we use when we have a class where we know that we will only ever have one instance of this class or one object of this class. So as you know, most classes are like a blueprint, right? So with a blueprint, you can create or instantiate one or more objects based off of that blueprint. But there are situations where, scenarios where you would only ever want to have one instance of this class. So for example, if you were creating a restaurant app for Mary's Diner, so Mary's Diner, and in your app you need to model the menu object. So you have a menu class that defines how a menu object looks. Now, because you're only ever having one restaurant, Mary's Diner, you would probably only ever have one instance of a menu object. That makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense to have multiple menu objects in Mary's Diner, because that'll cause confusion. What if the two menu objects are not exactly the same? Which menu would a customer order from? And what if the prices were different? What price would you charge? Right? So in that situation, only having one menu object makes a lot of sense. Another example is, let's say, Uber, the Uber app. Presumably inside that app, they would have a dispatcher object. This is the object that determines how to schedule drivers, pickups, and all that. So in that app, you would probably only ever have one instance of the dispatcher object. It doesn't make sense to have multiple instances. So these are examples where the singleton design pattern makes a lot of sense. Okay, now let's take a look at an example here in the code. So here, I have written a class called example singleton. It's not a singleton yet. It just looks like a normal class. Here we have a constructor. The constructor is public. We have a private property, my value, and a private method. A public property, my value, and a public property method, do something, and a private property, my value string. So if we went into our main activity, this could potentially be how we might use it, right? So we would call the constructor new example singleton. The result would be assigned to a temp object, and then we would be able to access the public property my value, assign it to 100, call the do something public method, and then which returns a string. Now this one here will not be valid because my private string is a private private property, sorry. So I can't do that, right? And it gives us an error because it's private. So I'm going to be commenting that out. Okay, so let's say Singleton here, we only ever want to have one instance of this. So how do we do that? So the first thing we do is let's make the constructor private. So what happens here is that now this line here becomes an error because we can no longer create an example singleton object calling the constructor. So I'm just going to comment this out for now. So we want to do that because we don't want external users of this class to be able to create instances of example singleton. We only ever want to have one instance of this, and so we don't allow the constructor to be called so that you can't just arbitrarily create objects of this class. Okay, great. So that gives us a problem now, but we still need one instance of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to then create a public static. So static means this is a class method. Get instance. The return type is an example singleton, and the name of this method is called get instance. Okay, and then this here is where it'll return the one object of example singleton. So if we did this, new example singleton, then that doesn't solve the problem, because each time get instance is called, we're just returning another instance of example singleton. What we need to do is we need to return one and only one instance of example singleton. So what then I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a private, again this is static, example singleton shared instance. Okay, so this here, because it's static, that means there's only ever one copy of this variable. So there's a difference between a class property and or a type property and a regular property. In the same way that this get instance is accessible through the class and not through the object. Okay, so now we have a shared instance. So when do we ever create this shared instance? This needs to be created. So what we're going to do here is we're going to leverage the lazy instantiation pattern. Okay, so that's in another tips and tricks video. So if shared instance is equal to null, so let's initialize this to null. Okay, so the very first time get instance is called, it checks shared instance if it's equal to null, and it will be for the very first time. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go shared instance equals new example singleton. So here we create one instance of example singleton and we assign that to shared instance. And then here we return shared instance. Okay, so then this is all we need to do to make this a singleton pattern. Let's walk through what happens here. External users cannot call the constructor. The only way they can get an example singleton object is through this get instance method. This is very similar to a factory method that we talked about before, but in this case, instead of creating a new instance each time, it returns you the same instance. So the very first time this is called, shared instance hasn't been created yet, so we're going to create it here. And then we're going to return that here. The second time you call get instance, it's going to check to see if shared instance equals null. In this case, it's no longer null because it's already been created the first time it was called. So then it will return the same instance that was created the first time. So the second and all subsequent times that get instance is called, it'll be returning the shared instance that was created the very first time it was called. Okay, so this is a very novel and very clean way of implementing a singleton. But you can see here that you're not allowed to call the constructor. You can only get an example singleton object through the getInstance class method. And each time you call that, it will return to you the exact same object, the exact same instance. So let's see how we use it. So here, instead of, we'll just need to change this here. Instead of calling the constructor, which we're not allowed to, we're going to call the class method getInstance. Then the way you use it here is exactly the same. Later on, on some other part of your program, you could say temp1 object equals example singleton getInstance. And even though it is a different variable name here, because it's calling getInstance, this object will be the exact same object as that. Because each time you call getInstance, no matter where in your code, it'll be returning to you the same instance, the same object that was created the first time. All right, so that's how a singleton pattern works. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.